you don't necessarily know that it's the right idea to change what you're doing.
Another week. It's pretty much the last. We got one more week until break.
Christmas,
I think. Yeah. So that's fun.
Christmas break. The code shutdown. What do they call it? Code freeze.
Code freeze. No
December code
deploys.
Freeze.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But this week was good. It was a pretty good one. I personally had a bit of stuff on in life, so couldn't get in as much as I wanted to, but we still managed to sneak in a few things. We had a meeting on Saturday with a cool creator from America doing some big things, working on a really cool business. And it's a little bit outside of our kind of wheelhouse, but luckily Clipflow can actually cater for his needs. So there were a few things. So we managed to smash out a couple of features for him in particular, just to, show him what we can do and just make it work. So we added custom platforms. So you have the major platforms like, YouTube, Facebook, all that, but now you can actually add custom platforms. So if you have your own place where you publish media, it could be your own website, could be a course site, could be anything like that. We now support that. So it opens up a whole nother avenue of, I guess, people that could use Clipflow. So especially in the early days when we're trying to figure out who our customer is, it is quite handy. We added the ability to create media versions. This was something that I personally was starting to feel the pain of. When you get a new revision of a file, you don't want to have V1, V2, V3. You just kind of want to create a stack of versions and you can see which ones are outdated. And that was also another request. So we added that in and it's made life really nice. It was quite complicated to add in, but I think it was worth it in the end. We also got another request now that we're getting more volume through, was to add update the media reviewers who could handle more comments. We got one of our beta testers sent through a comment list that was like 2 vertical screens high, which is way more comments than what we usually have. We usually do a couple, like 2 or 3. But so what we've done is we've made the whole media review now take up the whole vertical space, and the comments scroll and the comment box stays fixed. And that update looks really nice. We also updated the way that hover comments look like on the timeline, just to make it add that little bit more polish, looking really nice. And then we've gone through and added some buttons just to make it easier to see how to customize certain areas. So statuses are customizable in Clipflow. A lot of people have had trouble knowing how to do that. So we've added little buttons in spaces like on the Kanban now to say customize, which takes you to the status page where you can go and update, as well as in the modals for content pillars and categories. There's now a little customized link. It's just those tiny little UI UX improvements that just make it easier to use the product and get started. So those are, the things I could slip in, do in a couple of minutes and just, make sure we're getting some things on the board this week, especially with all the interruptions. What did you get up to, mate? No, you're on mute, bro.
Started the week on brands and sponsors, and then because we had a couple of interviews, sort of decided to just put that aside. And that would be like one of the most notable things for me this week is just, you don't necessarily know that it's the right idea to change what you're doing, but usually you get like a gut feel on whether or not it's the right thing to do. And so we did that. So I've going back and just making minor improvements to things based on people's feedback, just because we know that as we start onboarding more and more people, it's those problems that people have, the little ones, the little things that are like, oh, that was a bit confusing. They're going to multiply, and most people aren't going to tell you that they have that problem. They're just going to switch off from the software.
I totally agree. I think that's one thing. It's like why it's quite important to have like a kind of like, I don't want to say North Star because it's so lame, but it is. It's like your guiding goal. Like what did you set out to achieve, right? It's like to build great software for creators and like that flow. So making sure you circle back and not get distracted by the shiny things, because there's always something new to build and we don't actually know it's the right path just yet. It's really important to focus on the core product, which is it's the project management of a video or getting that through. So making sure that that's as good as it can be is super important. And I think that was one thing that you called me out on right in the beginning was like, I want to make sure that we have the best product for that. So this week was kind of like, well, we both said, let's go and focus now back on this feedback we've gotten and go and polish that up. And then we can keep moving, like as long, because it doesn't take too long. It's a small detour, it's a week or 2, but then we've done that polish again, and then we can come and cycle through. But just making sure we're focusing on our core product, because one of the bigger things that did come through for us was like, this is the great, hindsight is 2020. Our projects are tied to one channel. So basically when you create a project, a channel is for us is like YouTube is a channel, or Facebook or Instagram. Now, being tied to one thing when is fine in like longs. It's generally okay. Like when you're doing a YouTube video, it's going to be published to YouTube and possibly Spotify if you're doing a podcast, and that's it. There's not really any other platforms. But when it comes to shorts, it gets really messy because now you have a project tied to Instagram Reel, but you're also going to you might publish that same short across multiple platforms, right? Whether or not that's best practice is another debate, but it is something we do, just to get it out across those platforms, and then you end up being now tied to one channel. So we had feedback from one of the interviews that we had was, hey, you should probably consider having it be a many to many, so a project can have many channels. For us, that's a major architectural change, but we've decided to go down that path because now's the time when we don't have that much volume and we can do it. So yeah, it's been one of those things, but it's all focusing on that core product, getting that right,
Yep.
and then taking the next
Doing the unsexy work for a while. I think it's easy to be when you, especially because we haven't started marketing it really. It's like, you get into the mindset of there's not enough creators. We need to look at the other things that they're doing and try and take market share from other products that exist. And then you're like, well, if we just had the best one of what it is that we were already planning on doing, then we probably don't have to worry about that. But you don't see that for a long time. You're not going to see the value of that for a long time, being the best in the market in that one space.
Yeah, it is a tough one. Another place where I spent a bit of time as well with this week was, talking about like not having enough creators and stuff, is going through a course on like Facebook ads and like learning how to do them and deploy them, because that's something we'll look at in the new year. Because I think we've kind of decided that we're going to have a hard cutoff for the beta, which is also cool because we create a little bit of urgency for 1 year's worth. So from when we started, which was like full-time May 2024, May 2025 will be the hard cutoff for beta. There will be no such thing as a beta user for free anymore unless you've joined prior to that date. So after that day, we'll go into the paid route, and we're going to go and play and experiment there. So I like having that because it gives us like a line in the sand. Otherwise, we're just like, it's free for,
Yeah, give it an event to promote in the ads to say if you do want to get in before it costs money, now's the time.
And the landing page too, can be like, hey, this is beta free until that date, and it's not a lie. It's going to happen. It's going to swap after that date. Now you pay, and I think that's fine. And the nice thing about it is we've also noticed had a lot of people ask us, how much does this cost? That's always a good sign. It's like, I want to use it. How much does it cost me? So people understand there is value there, which is really nice to see. So, but the beta is free at this point, just because we are asking people for their time and their feedback, and that's a good value exchange for us.
Another thing I like about having that date is that we can plan things around it, like a launch week. I have 7 days of new features roll out where we're like, we'll keep some things for those specific launch window where we're like, we announced this, and get a real like ferocity to it where you're actually putting the time in, because we typically just launch stuff and just do it as things come up. So it'll be good to have that cadence of things that we want to do at certain times.
Yeah, I've just never understand how a launch week works. Like, do you build the feature and you just hold it off from being merged? Is that what's going on? And then what happens when all the code's changing underneath it? Like, how does that? I just don't know.
I don't know how they do it, but I know like Superbase does 4 of them a year or something. It's not like,
you know what, it could also just be feature flags. It could be behind feature flags. They could just turn it off behind a feature flag, and then they just add the link in the sidebar, and then away you go. Yeah, it just depends on what type of feature. Sometimes those are super underwhelming as well. Like the features they announce on the day. So now do this thing. You're like, okay, cool.
Yeah, probably I think it's more about that same feeling we want from the changelog, which is constant progress and innovation. Just announcing it more, just saying like 5 in a row, and on Twitter everyone's like, oh, they're pretty busy. Even though you can be busy and not talk about it, you can be busy and talk about it, and then everyone's like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it makes you. I read that thing you sent me about it being like feeling alive and a pulse, and I like that kind of breakdown of the style of how to do it. It was cool how they turned it into a formula. But that was our week. So we've got one more week next week, and then we're going to take 1 week off or a couple of 1 week, 2 weeks off, sometime around that, and then be fresh for 2025 to keep smashing it. So we'll catch you guys on the next one.